These are the notes on genetics. You should fill in on your version of the notes the terms as we go through them, but make sure that you listen closely to everything I have to say and don't just write down the words from the PowerPoint, because there's some additional information that you should know and perhaps might need to add into your notes that goes beyond what is in the slides. So this is about genetics, and we're going to get into what genetics is. So genetics is the scientific study of how traits are passed from parents to offspring. And traits are any sort of observable characteristic. So this could be something like your eye color or your height, but it could also be things like whether you have a disease or not, or how well your cells function to do certain things. If at any point you need to pause the video to write in your notes, you should do so. So much of what we know about genetics today was discovered by a monk who lived in Austria in the 1800s, and he studied pea plants, the inheritance of traits in pea plants, and he did this because they were particularly ideal in that they had a number of traits where there was only two different versions that were present. So here in this table, we have pea plants that have seeds that are smooth or wrinkled, or yellow or green, or pods that are inflated or wrinkled, and so on. And this was different than many traits that people had looked at before. People knew that traits were inherited. They knew that children tended to look like their parents, but they didn't quite understand how that worked. And choosing these basic traits where there was only two versions allowed Mendel to work out the mechanism by which traits are inherited. So when Mendel was working, he was studying traits and what they looked like, but we now have quite a bit more information about how this works. So now we know quite a bit about DNA, and we know that when we are thinking about a particular trait, there is a certain segment of the DNA, which we learned about back in talking about cells. DNA is stored in the nucleus, and a particular section of DNA that has information for a particular trait is known as a gene. So if we think about all of the DNA that's in the nucleus, and that is actually divided up into pieces called chromosomes, if there's one particular stretch of one chromosome, so if here's our nucleus of our cell here, and within that there's multiple pieces of DNA which are called chromosomes, and maybe one particular stretch, say from here to here, might have the information about your eye color on it. So that would be the gene for eye color would be located in that particular part of your DNA. And every person's gene for eye color would be located in the same place. Now, when we talk about the genes that a person has, collectively we can refer to that as their genotype, which would be the particular versions of the genes, or the genes that are encoded within a particular cell, or for a multicellular organism like you, the encoded in every single one of your cells. So we can talk about your genotype overall, or we can talk about your genotype for just particular traits. Now, that will make more sense when we look a little bit more detailed about what makes up a genotype for humans. So our genotype is the particular genes that we have. We tend to represent those with letters of the alphabet. They stand for a segment of DNA. And the phenotype is the way that that physically shows up. So the physical expression of that trait, whatever structure, function, behavior is the result of that particular trait. So your phenotype for eye color, having blue eyes, is a phenotype. Or for your type of thumb, having a hitchhiker's thumb is a phenotype of the particular trait of what your thumb will look like. Now, what Mendel discovered, and this is what people hadn't known before, is that genes come in different versions, and we now call those different versions alleles. So alleles are the different versions of a gene. And those were at one point created by mutations. They led to alternate versions of the genes that we now refer to as alleles. And the way that we represent those different alleles is using a particular letter of the alphabet. If we think about our stretch of DNA, it would be really millions of molecules long, thousands of base pairs perhaps that would make that up. And we stand for that. We put a letter of the alphabet in to stand for a particular allele. Now, humans and many other species are what we refer to as being diploid. And that means that they have two homologous chromosomes, which are chromosomes that have the same information on them, but perhaps can be different versions. So here is what's called a karyotype. It's a picture of all of the chromosomes in one human cell. And every single one of your cells, we could take it apart and we could look at it under a microscope, and if we caught it at the right time, we could get pictures of all your chromosomes and sort them out and put them into a picture something like this. Now, homologous chromosomes, your chromosomes have certain genes on them. So your chromosome number 1, these are distinguished by their length and the banding pattern on them. They're also distinguished by the certain genes that are on them. So say on chromosome 1, maybe in one particular section, this section right here, there might be a gene for eye color. So on your other chromosome 1, there would also be a gene for eye color. And maybe on chromosome number 8 here, at this particular section right here, there's a gene that is responsible for your type of thumb that you have, whether it's hitchhiker's or a regular thumb. So that would be present on everybody's chromosome number 8 in that particular location, and so on. Now, the reason why you have 2 of every chromosome is because you have 2 parents. So for every chromosome pair here, you got 1 of each of those pairs from your mother, and you got one part of each of those pairs from your father. So what this ultimately means is that for every gene, you are, if say the gene for eye color here, you're going to have 2 alleles because of those homologous chromosomes. Now, the other thing that Mendel discovered was what he called his principle of dominance, and what we now refer to as a dominant recessive inheritance pattern. We'll see later on that there are other inheritance patterns that different traits can follow. But what Mendel came up with was this principle of dominance that stated that some alleles are dominant and others are recessive. And what that means is that dominant alleles always get expressed as the phenotype if they are present. And the way that we represent alleles that are dominant is by using capital letters. Remember before we said that we would represent alleles using letters of the alphabet. If it is a dominant allele, we'll represent it with a capital letter. And recessive alleles, we represent using a lowercase letter. And recessive alleles only get expressed if there isn't a dominant one present. Now, we said that every individual has 2 alleles, so when we think about it, if they're not going to have a dominant allele, that means they must have 2 lowercase or 2 recessive alleles. So the only way that you would see the phenotype that is associated with the recessive allele is that if both alleles are that recessive allele. Now, every individual has 2 alleles for a particular gene, and we said that we refer to the genotype as an individual as the combination of alleles that they have, or an expression of the versions of the gene that they have at a particular location. And for a dominant recessive trait, or the kind of traits that Mendel worked with, there was dominant alleles and recessive alleles. So there's essentially 3 combinations we have. So if we had a trait that we were representing with the letter R, and there's a big R dominant allele and a little r recessive allele, our possible combinations are having 2 big R's, 2 little r's, or a big R and a little r. Now we have special words for those combinations. A homozygote, or someone who is homozygous for that particular gene or that trait, would be someone who has 2 alleles that are the same. So you could be homozygous dominant, which would be big R, or you can be homozygous recessive, which would be little r. Now you can also be a heterozygote, or heterozygous for that particular gene, and that would be someone who has two different alleles. And for dominant recessive traits or Mendelian inheritance traits, that would be a big R and a little r, or whatever particular letter of the alphabet. We choose different letters, kind of like variables in math, that we can have that will stand in for particular alleles. Now, what this ultimately looks like, if we think about what Mendel discovered, we think about our chromosomes. Say this is the chromosome for pea plants that had a particular section of that had the color for seeds. And dominant versus recessive, we'll figure out later how you could figure out whether a particular trait is dominant or recessive, but for now you're going to be told if something is dominant or recessive. So you're being told that yellow is a dominant allele and green is a recessive allele. So an individual, obviously their chromosomes are not going to show up colored like this. These colors are standing in instead of the letters you'd use to represent it. So you might use something like a big Y here, and a big Y here, and a little y here as letters to represent it. Here we have colors, so you can kind of see what this is actually representing is a segment of the DNA. And so here a homozygous dominant individual would show up as being yellow because they have at least one of the dominant alleles. A heterozygous individual would also show up as yellow because they have a dominant allele. And a homozygous recessive one would show up as green because they only have the green alleles. Now, here's where the principle of dominance really comes in, is with the heterozygote, in that they look like only the dominant allele. And this was kind of something new that people hadn't discovered before. Before they thought it was kind of children ended up as a blend of the parents, which we will see sometimes that does happen. But in order to ultimately understand how traits are inherited and how these alleles are passed on, it was important for Mendel to look at particular traits where that did not happen, where there was a dominant allele and there was a recessive allele. Now, a few more important vocabulary that might be referred to as you start to solve these genetic problems. When we are tracing a trait through multiple generations, we have some particular vocabulary that we use to refer to the generation that we're looking at. So P refers to parental. This would be the first generation of parents that we're looking at. Their children we refer to as the F1 generation. The F stands for filial, which all of you Latin scholars should know what that means. So this is the first generation of children. And then the second generation of children is the F2 generation. So kind of thinking about this from your perspective, your grandparents would be the P generation, your parents would be the F1 generation, and you would be part of the F2 generation. Now this is important when we start to trace a particular trait through multiple generations. We might refer to being as in the P generation or the F1 generation or the F2 generation to understand where we are in the inheritance of that particular trait. So here's how Mendel discovered how these traits are inherited. He came up with his principle of dominance. He took some pea plants that were yellow, and he took some that were green, and he crossed them together, and in his F1 generation, so the children of that cross, he got out pea plants that were all yellow. And then he took some of that F1 generation and he did what's called a self-cross. Plants have the ability to mate with themselves. They take the pollen of one flower and put it onto another flower. And when he did that, he took the F1 generation and self-crossed it. He got out an F2 generation that had some yellow and some green. And in fact, they showed up as a particular ratio of 3 yellow to 1 green. That ratio is going to be important in a minute. Now, Punnett squares, we'll come back to these in the next video. We'll look at how we can use Punnett squares to predict what is going on. So we'll come back to that later. A few additional terms that are important for understanding what's going on. Self-cross, we just referred to up above. It's also sometimes called self-fertilization. Plants have the ability to do this. For the most part, animals don't. This is where you have a offspring results where one plant is both the mother and the father. So it's responsible for both parts of the genetics. And pure breeding is essentially another word for homozygous, which means they have two of the same alleles.